An estimated 50 million Americans suffer with some form of autoimmune disease, compared to 9 million with cancer and 22 million with heart disease. Autoimmune disease is the #1 cause of death in women under the age of 65, and medical research currently recognizes more than 100 forms of autoimmunity. Symptoms can affect all body organs, your joints and muscles, diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and psoriatic arthritis and ankylosing spondylitis. Nerves like multiple sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's has been recognized as autoimmune. Hormones, hypothyroidism, liver disease, autoimmune hepatitis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, all been recognized as autoimmune. The skin, eczema, psoriasis, vitiligo, dermatitis herpetiformis, and alopecia are all forms of autoimmune disease. Unfortunately, medical education provides minimal learning, and it can take decades to get a diagnosis. I believe that giving medications that suppress the immune system and contribute to cancer is not an answer. I believe that doctors should know more. I believe that they should step outside of the box of medical convention. I believe that doctors should be better trained in nutrition, in exercise, and the principles of functional medicine. I believe that autoimmune disease is a byproduct of our society's promoted imbalances. Imbalances in nutrition, in our perception of what is healthy. Imbalances in exercise, imbalances in sleep, in stress, in meaningful relationships, in our work. Imbalances in our immune system caused by decades of being told to take pills to suppress our body's warning systems. On your journey, you're in the right place. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about the #1 diet to beat autoimmune disease. We're also going to be diving into the danger of fake eggs and taking lots of your questions. So don't go away. Welcome to Dr. Osborne's Zone. You unlock this door with the key of compassion. Beyond it is another world, a world of science, a world of common sense, a world of sanity. You're moving into a land of both empathy and ethics, of nutritional knowledge and empowerment. You've just crossed over to Dr. Osborne's Zone. Welcome to Dr. Osborne's Zone. I'm super excited about today's show. We're going to be diving into the #1 diet to treat and reverse autoimmune disease. Now, this is something that most doctors will tell you doesn't exist. Usually when patients go into the doctor's office and ask, can diet or food alter or improve my condition? The answer is typically no. Diet has nothing to do with autoimmune disease, although we know that's absolutely false. Let's just look at the #1 example that everyone agrees on, and that's celiac disease. We all know that celiac disease is caused by a protein found in grain, gluten. And so why wouldn't we want to apply that same concept to all other forms of autoimmune disease? And I've been doing this now for 21 years. And I have found that over that time in my practice, the best way to reverse autoimmune disease for people is diet change. So let's dive into it. We're going to be talking about we're going to be implementing the No Grain, No Pain Diet 30-Day Challenge. So those of you maybe new to the show who have an autoimmune condition and you're trying to figure out how you can approach this naturally, because the non-natural approach is medication for the rest of your life. Many of these medications have untoward side effects that can do untoward things, nutritional deficits and damage to the GI tract, etc. So let's dive into this challenge. What are we doing? We're going to start this week with phase 1 of the No Grain, No Pain diet. We'll come back next week for phase 2. So we're going to do this in a step-like fashion to not overwhelm you. So phase 1 is days 1 through 15. So this is a 15-day phase of the beginning of a diet that can reverse autoimmunity. So what are we doing? We're eating whole food that is organic. These are the kind of the two biggest rules, right? We whole food that's organic. We don't want processed packaged foods to any great extent. And so if we break this down a little bit more simplistically, we want all of our food, our meats, our vegetables, our fruits, etc. We want those to be organic. We also want, let's change our color here. We want grass-fed if it's beef. We want wild-caught if it's fish. And we want free-range, organic if it's poultry. So your chicken, turkey, or other birds. Or we could also do in this category, we could do wild game. So any of you that are hunters who do annual hunting trips, etc., elk, venison, etc., those are all acceptable as well. So you want the meats to be grass-fed, wild-caught, free-range, organic, or wild-caught. So, and then vegetables, of course, vegetables and fruits, we want those to be organic. Why? We're trying to avoid the pesticides. Why are we trying to avoid the pesticides? Because many autoimmune conditions, and this goes back to when I did my training in the VA hospital in the rheumatology wing, one of the things that I learned was certain autoimmune conditions actually had pesticides as triggers. A perfect example, myasthenia gravis, which is an autoimmune disease that can affect the muscles and the strength of muscles and the longevity of the strength of muscles. And so there were a number of reports and studies that showed that pesticide exposure increased the risk for the development of those diseases. Of course, we know more today than we did 21 years ago. Pesticides behave as destroyers of the microbiome. So, and with all the things we've learned about the microbiome being so critical to prevent leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability, which is a precursor to autoimmune disease. So this is why organic is so important. We're trying to avoid pesticide exposure in mass. So you've got to go with organic. Now, many of you will maybe balk a little bit at cost, but I would argue this: if you don't spend the money on your health, you're going to spend it on drugs, and you're going to spend it on hospitals, and you're going to spend it on doctors, and you're going to spend it in lost years and lost quality of life. So get over that part and get to organic as quickly as you can, because you want to avoid the pesticides, because we know they're autoimmune inducing chemicals. And the second kind of general rule is avoid processing and packaging as much as possible. Now, even there will be some foods that are processed or packaged that are organic, that fit the general rules of relatively good health. But the vast majority of processed and packaged foods are loaded with chemical dyes, chemical preservatives, things like, like meat glue. You also have in these products, you have pesticides. In many cases, they're not organic, or they're derived from GMO-based, plant-based foods. And so they're just not good for you. And be cautious, too, of foods that are green and give the appearance of like health, because a lot of those packages are designed to make the food inside look healthy, but it's a trick. It's a marketing ploy. So don't let the packaging where it has the appearance of good health trick you. Always, always, always look at your labels. And the rule about labels is very, very simple. If you can't pronounce, don't buy it. If you're reading a word on a label and it's supposed to be food, and it's a multisyllabic word that belongs in some type of chemical textbook, that's not food. That's some type of preservative, flavor enhancement, or texture enhancer that doesn't belong in your body. Your body doesn't like that. As a matter of fact, there have been a number of studies recently showing that people who go gluten-free, who continue to eat packaged foods that contain words that you can't pronounce, don't recover as well as people who eat whole, real food. So take the garbage out. Very, very important. And again, don't let it overwhelm you. That's why we're breaking this up. This is days 1 through 15. Get solid on your meats, wild-caught, grass-fed, free-range. Get solid on your fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. You want organic, and get solid on avoiding packaged foods that contain words that you can't pronounce. Certainly, if they're not organic, avoid them. So let's dive into a little bit more specifics here. What are the other rules about days 1 through 15 on the No Grain, No Pain Challenge to overcome autoimmune disease? Number 1, you avoid all grains and pseudograins and all foods that contain them. So what are we talking about here? Classically speaking, the celiac grains are the brow grains, if you will. Make it easy with this acronym. Barley, rye, oats, wheat is what that stands for. Now, those aren't the only grains. We also want to avoid corn, rice, sorghum, and millet. We also want to avoid amaranth, quinoa. These are and buckwheat. These are what are called pseudograins. They're technically not grains, but they have mimicking properties of grains that can create reactions in many folks that are dealing with autoimmune processes. So with this rule number 1, we avoid the brow grains, but we also avoid the corn, the rice, the sorghum, millet, amaranth, quinoa, and buckwheat, all foods that contain them. So this goes back to packaged foods. Generally, where do we see these things, these grains? We see them in packaged foods. It's how our cereal bars are made. It's how cereals are made. It's how bread and pasta, donuts, and other packaged processed foods are made. They're made with grains. And so you're avoiding all these things. This is one of the top rules. The reason why it's number 1 here is because it's number 1, the most important rule, period. Because the grain in and of itself is the most well-studied contributor or cause to autoimmune disease. So how are we going to escape autoimmunity if we don't avoid these things? Now, if you're on the fence and you're not sure, should I avoid or should I not avoid grain? You can do 2 things. Number 1, you can go to glutenfreesociety.org. We'll put a link below this video for you, and you can take our free quiz. It's very simple. You go through it, you answer certain questions, and then we'll give you an answer as to whether or not you may or may not be gluten sensitive. Again, it's not a medical diagnosis, but it gives you kind of a confirmation more as to, is this the right place for you to start? The second option, if you're on the fence, is do genetic testing. I'll also put a link below this video on genetic testing for those of you who want to look at that as something to get this determined. Because if you're gluten sensitive, genetically speaking, the rule number 1, there's no room for negotiation with it. Now, some of you may try to negotiate with it because you don't have genetic testing to confirm it, but again, if you're trying to just follow along, follow rule number 1. Now, number 2, meat from grain and soy-fed beef and other animals, as well as caged poultry raised on grain and soy. So, clear delineation here. As I was talking earlier on the previous slide, I said that the meat should be wild caught. The meat should be free range. The meat should be organic. If it's beef, it should be grass fed. This is just kind of ironing out some of those other rules. Why don't we want cow meat, for example, or beef that's raised on a commercial farm? One of the reasons why is these animals are kept in coops very tight. They're peeing and pooping all over each other. The stress is very high. It's not a healthy environment. And then we're feeding them food that is not genetically what these animals are supposed to be eating. Cows in the wild don't thrive on heavy quantities of soy and corn or wheat that's genetically modified. Like, this is one of the worst things you could feed an animal certainly it's how farmers fatten them up so that they can get them to market quicker and sell them for a higher rate. But it's also how we make humans sick. And so when you eat an unhealthy animal, you become an unhealthy animal, so to speak. So the soy, you remember one of the big problems here with the grain-fed animals and the soy is that this is GMO. These crops are GMO, genetically modified organisms, and they are doused with the pesticide glyphosate, which, now, and, if you pay attention, there were a couple years ago, and there was a lawsuit in California where Monsanto, the company that owns glyphosate and has the patent on it, was sued, and it was I think it was a California court, and they proved that not only did Monsanto know that their pesticide contributed to an increased risk for cancer, but they hid documents and evidence of the nature showing it. And so in this court battle, the gentleman who sued Monsanto won and was awarded millions of dollars. And so we don't want that in our body, right? I mean, and now Monsanto was sold to Bayer Corp, which Bayer is, if those of you ever heard of Bayer aspirin, they now own this pesticide company. You don't want that in your body. Remember, the pesticides are designed to kill life. You don't want to take in poison that's designed to kill life in an attempt to try to nourish your body. So that's one of the reasons why this rule exists. Now, caged poultry raised on grain and soy is a bad idea. Now, this question came up the other day, and somebody was asking, well, can we eat any chicken that has been fed grain? Yes. But the chickens shouldn't be caged. They should be free-range chickens where they have access to grass and bugs and outdoor time and sunshine. This is what grows a healthy animal. This is what grows a healthy bird. Now, some farmers are gonna be in a situation where they have to feed the chicken some supplemental grain. It just needs to be organic. Remember, birds are capable of digesting and processing seeds, which is what grains are. So it's not that grains per se make a bird unhealthy. It's just that if you only feed a bird grain, that's not the healthiest for that bird. You also change the nature of the meat. Birds that are only fed grain and soy as their primary staple food in their diet, the quantity of omega-6 fatty acid in that meat is extremely high, and it's not good for you. So you definitely want to make sure that you're avoiding that. Okay, all farm-raised fish and shellfish. Farm-raised fish, you know, they're using this word. It's a marketing term, but you'll see it a lot and you'll hear it a lot. It's sustainable fish farming, right? And it's sustainable in the sense that it sustains the farmers' profits and it sustains their ability to grow fish, but it's not sustainable for human health. If you've ever seen farm-raised salmon, they're very, very sickly. They're very anemic and pale. They actually have to inject the meat with pink dyes so that it looks like regular wild-caught salmon. It's not good for humans. You don't want it. So don't buy into that whole sustainable, marketing hype. But you want to avoid, again, any farm-raised fish and farm-raised shellfish. All dairy products. We're going to also avoid all dairy, and this includes fermented dairy products like yogurt and kefir, as well as dairy derivatives. Dairy, one of the reasons why we're avoiding dairy is its ability to mimic gluten. There's a type of protein in dairy called casein that can mimic gluten. So if you are gluten sensitive and you're reacting to gluten, your immune system, remember, we're talking about autoimmune recovery. Your immune system is already overreactive, responding to things that are gluten, but also things that might emulate or look like gluten. And that's where dairy comes in. Dairy is a big-time gluten mimicker, and you want to avoid it. All processed and GMO foods, including so-called gluten-free products and any other artificial ingredients. So again, going back to what I said back here, which is if you can't pronounce it, don't buy it. It's not worth putting in your body. Your body's too precious to stick that garbage inside of it. And then all soy products, including fermented soy, that's miso and tofu, and also soy sauce. So soy sauce, for many of them, the number one ingredient in most soy sauce is wheat. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of soy sauces don't contain soy. They actually contain wheat as the number one ingredient. Now, there are some quote-unquote gluten-free soy sauces that contain genetically modified soy, which we also want to avoid. Remember, we're avoiding soy, and part of the reason why we're avoiding soy is this reason right here. There've actually been some research that shows that soy can also cause villus atrophy, which is the damage and flattening of the intestinal lining. We're going to avoid all manufactured sugars. Now, with this one, we're not talking about fruit. We're not talking about real whole food sugars. We're talking about crystallized sugars concentrated from plants like cane sugar, beet sugar, corn sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and the like. We're talking about processed sugar, not real food that contains natural sugars in it. So all manufactured sugars are out. Now, there are a few exceptions here, not really technically exceptions, but like pure organic maple is a sweetening option that some people will use. There's also stevia, which some people find beneficial. There's monk fruit as a sweetener that can be used as well. And then there's birchwood xylitol is another one that can be used and is acceptable. You got to watch out for a lot of the alcohol sweeteners. They're derived from corn and GMO corn at that, so you want to avoid those. And what I mean by those is things like sorbitol and malitol, so you'll see those other alcohol sugars. But xylitol, if it's derived from birchwood, is okay. So those are just some options for sweetening. And of course, honey, Manuka honey, probably one of the better in terms of its potent microbial balancing properties. So it really can help keep the GI tract balanced. So those are, again, all acceptable types of sweetening agents that can be used, and then we're going to avoid all artificial sweeteners. So this is like the stuff in the pink packets, the blue packets, the yellow packets. Again, the Splenda, the NutraSweet, and the sucralose, if you will. Those things we want out. Those are not doing you any favors, and they actually there are studies that show that they can be damaging to nerves, and that they're actually still stimulatory of insulin, meaning that they don't actually, even though they're supposed to be sugar-free, your body still behaves as if they are sugar, and so you still get insulin spikes that can contribute to high spikes in blood sugar and diabetes. So you want to avoid those. Not good for you. Okay, so these are your general rules. We'll start with these in the first 15 days. So, we're going to come back next week and we're going to talk about stage 2, if you will, or phase 2 of the no grain, no pain diet. But I want everybody focusing in this first week in concentrating very, very highly on this, okay, so that you're not getting overwhelmed. This, for a lot of people, already feels overwhelming. So start here. Now, let's talk about some other things that you want to start doing right away, because it's not just about the diet change. No grain, no pain for autoimmune disease is about a lifestyle change. This isn't something that you're going to want to embark on for just 30 days, and when 30 days is over, you're going to go start eating Ho-Hos and Twinkies and cereal again. If you want real long-lasting change, you have to impart and change your habits and change your lifestyle so that you are doing things conducive to good health. Now, these things, I've just broken this down simply for you. We've kind of already talked about the clean eating rules, so I won't belabor that aspect of this slide. Those are the clean eating rules that we just talked about, phase 1, the no grain, no pain diet, avoiding chemicals. Now, if you're following the diet, you are going to avoid a lot of the chemicals that are found in food, right? But where else do we find chemicals? Household cleaning products, cosmetics. Women, a lot of your cosmetics are loaded with pseudoestrogens and phthalates, which are very, very damaging, and many of them have been shown to be triggers into the autoimmune process. So you want to try to avoid as much as possible chemical exposure. Now, I'm not saying don't wear cosmetics. There are certainly many brands of cosmetics that are gluten-free, that are chemical-free, and use more natural products. There are a lot of cleaning products that instead of using all those harsh chemicals and chlorines, you can use cleaning products that are based in essential oils that are much better for you, that are not going to be damaging to you. So this, again, you want to start looking at your cleaning products, your cosmetics, your soaps, your shampoos, your detergents, those types of things, and avoid them at all costs. If you've got them at home, the air fresheners, the things that people hang in their rearview mirror. If you ever took an Uber and you about choked out in the back seat because they had that chemical air freshener, blowing right on you, like those things are horrific for humans. I don't even know how they're legal. They're so dangerous. Avoid those things. If you've got fresheners or plug-ins, take them out of the wall. Use a natural essential oil. If you like fragrance and you want your house to smell nice and you want to have, you want to have that aroma around, use something natural that doesn't have loads of artificial estrogens and other what are called obesogens, which are chemicals that change your hormones and contribute to weight gain and hormonal disruption and imbalance. We want to get those things out because those are triggers for autoimmune processes. Remember, one of the things behind autoimmune disease, because many of these chemicals will mimic estrogen, one of the things that we know about autoimmune disease, we're very clear on this, is that women have a much higher rate of developing autoimmune disease. Now, that doesn't mean men can't, but one of the reasons women have a higher rate of autoimmunity has to do with this, estrogen. And so when you're consuming or you're using products that mimic estrogen, this is one of the drivers behind the increased risk for the development of autoimmunity. So remember, we're trying to get estrogen mimicking compounds out. Okay? We also, during this time, we want to exercise. Now, there's some rules with exercise. Predominantly, the rules around exercise are pretty simple. You don't exercise more than what you feel like you're capable of. In other words, if you haven't exercised in 5 years, don't go out and join, one of these boot camps where they're, guns blazing, trying to get you in shape while tearing you up at the same time. Always exercise to tolerance. A lot of people with autoimmune disease, one of the things we see very commonly, or I see very commonly in my practice, is people that are trying to exercise and they don't tolerate it, meaning that if they try to exercise, they're down in bed for 2 to 3 days after the attempt. If that's happening to you, you're exercising too aggressively for your current state of fitness and for the current state of health that your body's in. You should be able to exercise and not feel totally wiped out for the rest of the day. And so that, for you, that may look like a short walk and not necessarily weightlifting. For you, that might look like, just basically doing some toe touches and some simple calisthenics, in a very narrow window of time. It's to tolerance, remember that. But the body does require movement and motion. Where a lot of people get in trouble here is they have a desk job, and so they're sitting all day long. And when you sit, what you're basically telling your body is, we don't need the physical body. So, the body adapts and adjusts to your choices. If you don't use your muscles, if you're not in movement, your body will start to degrade or tear your muscles down. It will start to atrophy you because you're not using those tissues. Your body says, we don't need to waste resources if you're not going to use them. And this is how a lot of people get older, right? It's not actually the aging process per se so much as it is lack of activity over time, which equates to loss of physical capacity. And so you want to regain that physical capacity, and part of how we do that is we tell the body that we need it to be able to work. And so again, work to your ability, to your level of tolerance without wrecking yourself, but start with something. Baby steps. If you need to do baby steps, that's fine. As you get stronger, as you get more tolerant of exercise, then do more. And so it's a stair-stepping progress. This is where a lot of times I encourage, if you're really green around exercise and you don't really know what to do and you're very confused, this is one of those times where you might consider hiring a personal trainer. I don't recommend hiring some teenager who just took a weekend class in personal training. Those kind usually hurt people. Hire somebody who's been at this for 5-10 years and who works with people who are not supremely physically fit or young, right? Because especially if you're over 35, again, and you haven't exercised in 5 years, you don't want some gung-ho young trainer trying to put you through the grinder. They're gonna damage you. They're gonna hurt you. So get somebody with some good experience if you hire someone. The other thing you want to be focusing on is maximizing your sleep. Getting good sleep is when we heal. It's when we repair. And a lot of people have bad habits where they go to bed, midnight or later. Remember the time frame for sleep. This is the time frame by which we heal, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So this 4-hour window is the most important to be asleep during this 4-hour window. Now, certainly go to bed, and preferably earlier than 10 p.m. Be in bed at, I like to be in bed 8:39, especially in the winter months when it gets dark super early, which, we're in January, so that would be the case right now. So you can get in bed when the sun goes down and then wake up, not necessarily wake up at 2, sleep longer, but, when the sun goes down and the sun comes up, that really should, this time frame between the sun going down and going up, that should be when you're shooting for, ideally, your window of sleep. But you need to be asleep between 10 and 2. Some people go to bed at midnight and they'll sleep later, but they're losing some of that healing capacity, especially if you've got existing autoimmune disease. It's very hard to heal. It's very hard for your body to repair if you're not giving it the rest that it needs. And then this next one, which is, again, this is just general overall advice that you want to try to start following. Now, again, we're in January, so this is a little more challenging if the winter where you live is really harsh or it's really cold outside. In some places right now it's -20 outside, so spending time outdoors is a little challenging, if you will. But do your best. On days where you can get outside, on days where the weather permits it, make sure you're outside. Now, beyond that, you might consider using different light technologies. A lot of places around the world use light technologies to overcome those heavy winters. So if you live in the north, for example, using a light box. These are boxes that you put on a desk, and some of these are UV. They have UV light in them, and they help you make vitamin D. and they help you make melatonin. And again, these are very important. That melatonin is very important to get good sleep. And so if you can't get outside to get natural melatonin production done, you can use a light box. Again, they're not super expensive. You can buy them off the internet. But I would get you something and lined up in place if you live in a northern climate where your winter really lasts from like December, through March. That's 4 months of time where you're not getting any outdoor time, and that is going to add up. And this is where a lot of times people develop vitamin D deficiencies and sleep inadequacy, and get what we oftentimes call cabin fever, so seasonal affective disorder, and depression can set in. Light boxes like this can really help you and keep you mentally strong and mentally stable, help you with your sleep if you live in that northern type of climate. So take advantage of technology if you need to. It's worth investing in something to get you through that deep winter, especially as you embark upon this process. A lot of you may be watching tonight because it's New Year's and you've made a resolution to regain your health. So again, don't let that winter depression set in and really derail you, because what oftentimes happens is once January is over, people's New Year's health resolutions go right out the window and they end up right back where they were. So stay motivated, and one of the best ways to stay motivated is to make sure you're getting that exposure to light. So very important. Okay, let's talk about some other resources that you can tap into as you go through this. I've talked about these a number of times. These are my four, what I call my four top supplements. If you were to ask me, what should everyone with a gluten issue, what are the supplements that they should take? Over 21 years of practice, I've kind of culled it down to these four things. Biotic Defense is a probiotic. Why do I recommend probiotics? Well, number one, most people with gluten sensitivity and autoimmune disease have a probiotic deficit, meaning they don't have, when we do our testing, we find that many of them are deficient in species of bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacter, which are very important bacteria. What do? They help you digest your food. They help keep your gut from leaking. They produce something called mucin, which coats and lines the GI tract. They make vitamins for you. They also talk to your immune system. These bacteria actually talk to the immune system to help it regulate and not overreact. And so when you look at all those different functions of what these healthy bacteria support your body to do, and when you look at what happens to people when they're eating gluten, we know certain species are depleted and deteriorated as a result of gluten sensitivity. And so this is why this makes the list of the most important critical supplements to support yourself with. Another is a very solid multivitamin. My favorite formula is Ultra Nutrients. And Ultra Nutrients I designed it specifically for people with gluten issues. Why? Because there are certain nutrient deficiencies that we know are going to happen for people with gluten issues. And so this was designed with that in mind. It was also designed to provide meaningful therapeutic doses, not just you go buy these one-a-day multis in the pharmacy. That stuff is garbage. They cost about 17 cents to make, and then they turn around and sell it for like $12 or $14. Their profit is huge, but the quality of the pill, the quality of the ingredients is terrible. Most people don't realize that because they don't have biochemistry backgrounds, but we want good dosing. We want the quality of the nutrient to be there, meaning the quality or the form of the vitamin or the form of the mineral to be available, to be what's called bioavailable. So it's easy for your body to recognize it and to absorb it and to get it into the cells where it belongs. And this, again, the average person with gluten sensitivity that I see over the last 21 years, the average person has somewhere between 4 and 10 deficiencies easy. I mean, this is what we call malnourishment. These people are malnourished because gluten has been damaging their GI tracts for so many years. So again, if this is new to you, this is a great way to support your nutritional recovery. Remember, why nutrients? Your body needs vitamins and minerals to heal and repair. They are the molecular workhorses of how your body maintains itself. And if you're coming into this no grain, no pain challenge and you're malnourished, you may see results that are less than desirable because your body doesn't have the nutrients necessary to heal and repair the damage. So good quality multivitamin, in my opinion, very, very important. And then we have digestive enzyme, and I have several different blends, but the one I would recommend any newbie to use is Gluten Shield. And what Gluten Shield is it's an enzyme that breaks down gluten. So as you're going gluten-free, you're going to make mistakes. This is super common. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be like, oh, I didn't realize that. And you were eating something that was cross-contaminated, or you were eating something that, that you didn't even realize contained gluten. And this is designed to help protect you from your mistakes. It's not designed to help you go out and eat pizza. It doesn't work to that capacity. This is not a foolproof allowance for you to just go hog wild on grain, but it's there as a layer, it's there as a layer of protection to degrade any accidental gluten that you might get exposed to as you're going through this process. Now, it also has a full array of digestive enzymes that help you break down carbs, fats, and proteins, which is important because one of the things we also know is that people with history of gluten sensitivity, they have a lot of times have pancreatic damage or insufficiency, and they have GI damage. And so those two organs, the GI tract and the pancreas, are responsible for the production of digestive enzymes that help you break your food down and get access to the vitamins and minerals. And so if you are in that situation, you might be, digestively challenged, if you will, in the beginning. And so this can help you, support you to get back on track. And then the next thing is omega-3. High grain diets. So if you've been eating a lot of gluten, and if you've been eating the traditional meats, then again we'll talk about the commercial farm raised chicken and turkey and beef and pork. Those things that are fed grain, their meat is so loaded with omega-6 fats. Now, omega-6 is inflammatory. And a lot of times people's omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio is sky high. And so what should you be getting? You should be getting, minimum 4 to 1, and that would be omega-6 to omega-3 in your diet. So for every gram of omega-6, for every 4, I should say, you should be getting at least 1 gram of omega-3. Like that ratio, that 4 to 1 ratio is well established. Some believe the ratio should be closer to 1 to 1. As we know, Paleolithic hunter-gatherers had a ratio that was closer to 1 to 1. Most Americans are 16 to 1, and this is highly inflammatory. And what omega-6 does, if your levels are too high, is your body uses more inflammation than what's necessary for the day-to-day maintenance. Remember, we use inflammation, and most people think inflammation is bad. It's not. Inflammation is used basically as a tool to break down old cells or damaged cells so that you can clear the way to make new cells, right? And so you use inflammation, almost think of it as a tool to help you with maintenance. But if let me give you an analogy. If you're trying to tear down an old house, the proper tool for most would be like a bulldozer. You'd use a bulldozer and you'd doze down the old house so that you could rebuild a new one. Now imagine instead of using a bulldozer, you use 20 tons of dynamite. What's going to happen is you'll blow up the house, but then you'll blow up part of the neighborhood, and then the construction crews have to come in and clean all of that up and then repair all that excessive damage. And this is kind of what happens to people who have too much omega-6. Their body uses more inflammation than what's necessary, and so it doesn't just damage or break down the old damaged tissue. It also breaks down aggressively even healthy tissue, so it leaves the body in a state of heightened inflammation and basically of what we would call repair deficit, where you're basically breaking yourself down faster than you're capable of repairing it. And this is why people develop pain. Right? When your tissues are breaking down faster than they're repairing, they start to become dysfunctional and you have more inflammation in them, and so pain will ensue as a result. So omega is something that the vast majority of people with gluten sensitivity issues or on high grain diets most of their life have such a skewed ratio that they fail to respond very effectively with just diet change in and of itself, and we really have to dig them out of this omega hole. So these are the top 4 recommendations if you're looking at kind of supplementation. Now, one of the other things I'll say as a close 5 here is protein. A lot of folks are not eating enough protein. And remember, protein is the building block to heal and repair your tissues. It's where all collagen comes from. And so as a general rule of thumb, when you're trying to heal, if you're trying to come out of a state of chronic inflammation, you need more protein than if you're healthy. If you're a healthy person, you exercise regularly, you don't need quite as much protein because your body can recycle protein. But when you're sick and you're chronically ill, generally speaking, you need more protein as a building block to help you heal and repair. And so as a general formula, I recommend for people trying to heal 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. So figure out how much you weigh in kilograms. And to do that, if you're an American, 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. So you take your weight in pounds and divide it by 2.2, that should give you kilograms, and then multiply that by 1.5, and that gives you your base of how much protein every day that you should be trying to consume. So these 4 plus adequate protein are very, very key and important for healing and recovery. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of other resources. This QR code, you can pause the screen, take a snapshot of this. What this is going to do is it's going to take you to Gluten Free Society, and it's going to take you to a recipe page where we have categorized all of the phase 1, no grain, no pain recipes. Now, the phase 2 recipes are there as well. So both phase 1 and phase 2 recipes are at that URL. And we have a lot of recipes for you if you're looking for food ideas. I want you to have that as a resource. It's absolutely free for you to go here and tap into that. We have a professional chef on our staff who does fantastic creations for us to help keep you motivated and to help keep you in food tasting good and while you're trying to get healthy. So take advantage of that. All those recipes are acceptable for phase 1, which is this first 15 days as we go into this challenge. If you don't have a copy of No Grain, No Pain, you can pick it up at any major book retailer. You could also pick it up off of Amazon or even at your local library. And so use that book as well. Now, I've given you the guidelines to follow, so you don't need the book. You can rewatch this video, but if you want to get the nitty-gritty and more detailed information to the whys, the book is a great resource to help keep you motivated. There's also a lot of extra other things and tools within the book, one of them being a tracker of your symptoms. And so we have a questionnaire in the book that I encourage any of you that are embarking on this challenge to fill that questionnaire out first, so that as you go through this 15 and then 30 days, you can come back and track your improvement, because some of the improvement will be obvious and some of it will be subtle. So if you track it, though, you can actually get very granular about the benefits that you're embarking on with the diet. So you've got the marching orders. That's phase 1, days 1 through 15. We'll be back next week for phase 2, days 15 through days 30, and we'll talk in depth about what other changes that you can make at that time. So hopefully this is helpful for you, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to email those into glutenology@gmail.com. We're here to support you as you go through this New Year's Autoimmune Diet Challenge, the No Grain, No Pain Challenge. We'll see you in the next segment. Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Osborne, founder of Gluten Free Society, and I'm here in the manufacturing plant where all my products are made. I wanted to give you a behind-the-scenes tour to show you how we make my products so you can be as confident as I am that they are safe, powerful, and effective. In step 1, when a raw material ingredient arrives at the facility, we first need to make sure it really is what our supplier says it is. For instance, if we ordered magnesium, we test to verify that that's what they shipped. Then we further test to ensure it has 0 issues with harmful bacteria or heavy metal levels. Why do we do this? I want proof from the start that you're getting clean, safe ingredients. This step exceeds industry standards, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Then comes step 2. Once all the raw materials pass this first step of quality control, they're weighed individually so the right ingredients and the right amounts end up in your supplements. They're blended in specialized machinery to make sure you get the same product each and every time. During step 3, the product is packaged and goes to the lab for its final round of testing. In this stage, we confirm that what's on the label is in the product and retest to ensure nothing unexpected has snuck in. Testing before, during, and after might seem redundant to you, but we want to be absolutely certain you can trust these products. By the way, if you get your supplements somewhere else, there's a chance they may not have been tested at all.
I use these products in my clinic, I use them myself, I use them with my friends and family and loved ones, and most importantly, I share them with you, knowing you'll see powerful results in your own health. And as always, we want to make sure you have access to high quality, gluten-free products so that when you're looking for supplements to take, you don't have to worry about cross-contamination issues that could make you sick.
Hey, so today we're going to be reviewing this product here. It's called Just Egg, which is not true, but that's what they call it. You can see here it's plant-based, so it obviously can't be made from plants. It can't be an egg, but that's the name of the product nonetheless. So let's check out the ingredients. Flip it over, look at the back. Again, I encourage any of you who are trying to find food products that you can buy used that are healthy for you, always get in the habit of reading what's in the product. But if we look at this one, number one ingredient is water. Number two, mung bean protein, which is a bean protein. Expeller pressed canola oil, contains less than 2% dehydrated onion, gel and gum, carrot extractives, natural flavors, turmeric extractives, potassium citrate, salt, sugar, tapioca syrup, which is basically sugar, and then tetrasodium pyrophosphate, which is a preservative, and then transglutaminase. This is interesting because I've not yet seen people admit to this on food labels in the past, but transglutaminase is otherwise known as meat glue, right? It's that stuff we've talked about where with people with gluten sensitivity and celiac disease, when exposed to meat glue, it actually causes leaky gut and can perpetuate their problem. So I think we could say with this particular product, there is no obvious gluten in it, so we could technically call it gluten-free. But because of the presence of transglutaminase, I would say you should run as far away from this product as you could possibly get. It's not good for you. And, if we just look at the other ingredients, the vast majority of this is processed additives and sugar. And is this something you want your kids or yourself to eat for breakfast, right? If you're making eggs, do you want sugar, a processed sugar and sugar syrup in breakfast? Is that healthy? I think if we also look at this product from the perspective of marketing, again, made from plants. So it's this, you're going to see more and more of this right here, made from plants or plant-based, because there's a big push in the social strata and in the political strata to make people be afraid of animal food. That's where the push is coming from. So this whole new marketing ploy, it's kind of like if you remember in the 1980s when everything was low fat, no fat, and they would just put those terminologies on food to basically make you think it was healthier, even if the food still wasn't healthy. And this is the same kind of marketing jargon that we're going to continue to see. It's not that there's anything wrong with something that's made from plants or plant-based, but when you look at the ingredients and you see that it's all chemicals and it's all ultra-processed plant garbage that has zero nutritional value and has the potential to damage your intestine, it's definitely not what I would consider to be food. So this product definitely gets a thumbs down, and I think we're just going to blow it up. Welcome to the Answer Zone. You ask your questions, I do my best to give you answers, and as always, remember, this is not medical advice. If you want medical advice, go talk with your doctor. I'm just trying to help you navigate the world of nutrition. And so that being said, let's dive in. Tiffany writes in with this question: can a reaction be just itching with no rash? In other words, she's talking about food reactions. I recently started eating Greek yogurt and my entire legs and arms have been driving me nuts with itching. I stopped eating it and the itching has stopped. And so the simple answer is yes. And you can eat a food and if you're reactive to that food, you can get a histamine response. And a histamine response can cause a rash, but it can also cause itching. And it can cause both at the same time. So, just itching is definitely a sign of potential for food allergy. And it's one of the ways that your body's going to communicate to you, stop eating that food. So Julie writes in asking, she says, I have a supplement with rice hull, but I'm also positive for gluten-sensitive genes. Am I right to assume that I need to avoid this supplement with rice hull in it? The answer, Julie, in my opinion, is yes. Even though rice is going to be, technically labeled as a gluten-free filler, there is a type of gluten in rice called orzonin, and many people react to it. So for somebody with gluten sensitivity, rice-based fillers are not the best thing to consume because it can create low-grade reactions that can create chronic and perpetual inflammation when you're trying to recover. Now, that also being said, rice is lowest in gluten of all the grains. So if we look at, wheat, having 69% of the protein found in wheat is a gluten, whereas 5% of the protein found in rice is gluten. So it's definitely lower, but that orzonin can be tricky and it can be inflammatory. And if you're not sure, but you're gluten reactive, it's best to avoid that rice. And below this, I'm going to put a more comprehensive article and video for you that goes a little bit more in depth about the whys of why you should avoid rice. Thanks for writing in your question. Jennifer writes in, how can one test negative for celiac disease, negative for wheat allergy, but always react when eating gluten? Is it glyphosate? So it's really two questions. Let's unpack it. Number one, if you're testing for celiac disease, know that there's a huge potential for those lab tests to give false negatives, meaning that you could get a negative test result, but you actually do react to gluten. And one of the reasons why is those tests are based on measuring antibodies. Many celiacs and many non-celiac gluten-sensitive individuals have antibody deficiencies. And so what can happen is you're using this test that's measuring antibodies, but because you have an antibody deficiency, the test comes back not showing a positive reaction, not because you're not reacting, but because you don't make enough antibodies for the test to detect the reaction that you're having. So that's one flaw. Then we have the biopsy test that many GI doctors will run, that biopsy to look for villus atrophy that's caused by celiac. Remember, not all people with gluten reactions develop villus atrophy. So if you come back and you're negative on your biopsy, it doesn't mean you're not reacting to gluten. It just means that the biopsy you had done didn't show villus atrophy. That's really all it means. Now, there's also another caveat to that, and that is your small intestine has the surface area of a tennis court. So it's very vast. And a biopsy of a few locations of that vast surface area of your small intestine is not an accurate representation of the entire surface area. So you can actually get a biopsy that's falsely negative, not because you don't have damage, but because where the doctor took the specimens didn't show any damage. So there's another, again, just one of the flaws or one of the downfalls of testing for celiac disease directly. This is why I always recommend genetic testing. Genetic testing, number one, you don't have to be eating gluten to do it. Number two, it will never change. You either have the genes that will predispose you to react to gluten or you don't. And so understanding that gives you kind of an ability to make a great decision about whether or not changing your diet to a gluten-free variety is the right move for you for the long haul. Now, some of you are saying, well, if gluten hurts, I'm just going to change my diet anyway. And that's great. You can do that too. But what happens to many, in my experience, is they go gluten-free for 6 months, maybe a year, and then social pressure draws them back in and pulls them right back over to the dark side of gluten, right? So, you go to a holiday party, you go out with friends, you go to a restaurant, and little by little, gluten starts to creep back into your diet. And remember that if you are gluten sensitive, as you continue to eat gluten, you have a fourfold increased risk of mortality as a result of doing that. So literally you're playing with your life if you allow that gluten to sneak back in slowly over time. So genetic testing is where it's at. The other tests can detect it, but there are flaws where you can get false negatives. Hey, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I want to encourage you all to stick to the no grain, no pain diet over these next many weeks. And to give you some encouragement, I want to share with you this very, very powerful testimonial of somebody who did it well and overcame autoimmunity.
I had a journey of doctor visits trying to determine why I had eczema and digestive issues. And the doctors only had a solution of prescribing me steroids or cortisone cream, antidepressants, and allergy shots, of which I stayed on starting at my childhood, throughout my adult life. And at the age of 50, I developed an autoimmune condition called polymyalgia that practically crippled me and was extremely painful. The eczema was the hardest to live with. It started early in my childhood, and I didn't know what caused the itching, and we tried to determine, was it food, was it environmental, was it a makeup that I would use? I became scared of living and became very anxious. I knew that it wasn't good to be on medications as much as I was, or my daughter was. And I knew they were harming me, but the doctors, there was no other answer. And the rheumatologist had assured me that if I was off of my prednisone, I would stiffen back up and be crippled. So there was no other solution. She felt that I needed to be on that for the rest of my life. And then that's when I found Dr. Osborne, who felt differently. When I came to him, the prednisone was working, but before that, I was practically crippled. I couldn't even lift my arms over my head or turn a steering wheel in the car, barely walk up the stairs. And it was an extreme pain. And the prednisone, the miracle drug that it is, masked everything, and then I could go on living. But it was doing a lot of harm, which Dr. Osborne was able to reveal to me, and we were able to put a stop to it then. We had just been shunned and pushed out of the doctor's offices. They sometimes never even looked at you in your eye, and you might have spent 20 minutes with them, and they filled out a prescription and sent you out the door with a good luck wish. Dr. Osborne looked at my daughter and myself in our eyes and said, "I'll dig as deep as I have to dig to find out what's wrong with you." He spends time, he cares deeply for each person, and he never stops caring. After 3 years, I'm free of pain. I can run. I'm not stiff. In the mornings when I get up, I can run if I want to. I can jump on a trampoline if I want to. I'm free of eczema. I'm no longer on prednisone or cortisone creams. At the age of 60, I feel better than I've ever felt in my entire life.